you know.
Yeah.
But we don't want to get into that fray. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling good. Ready to talk PGA Championship. Ready to watch lots of PGA Championship this week, and yeah, excited to see the outcome.
So people are saying like bootleg Atlanta. You don't want to get into that. You don't want to.
I,
You don't want to add.
don't punch down.
All right, that's
Don't punch down. That's what they say, right?
we got a social clip right there. All right, a couple of things. First off, very important stuff. We have an American Pope. So I guess my question: what does this mean for the U.S. chances at Bethpage? Joe, I don't know if you have like Pope affiliation in the model. I'm just kidding, but very excited for Bethpage. So any chance I get to talk about it, I will. Also importantly, Georgia Tech guys slipping. They had a good day yesterday. If you haven't listened to previous episodes, we've gone all in on Georgia Tech because Chris convinced us to. And Georgia Tech right now is T6 in their region, the Auburn Regional. No surprise, Auburn's 13 under. Actually, sorry, they're 20 under through 2 rounds. Georgia Tech had a good day yesterday. They were 4 under. They're 8 over today, and they are currently outside of the top 5. So they need to have a good day tomorrow, or they don't qualify. So we'll keep checking in on our boys. We're excited about the Yellow Jackets, but yeah, they gotta dig deep. We might need to send somebody on a plane and do something motivating for them. All right. So last things here. Any announcements, Cooper and Chris, before we dive all in onto the PGA Championship?
Quick shout out to the pod featuring yourself, Mr. Senor, and McWhorter. A little background on the Fishbird and the design of the Spay Bay logo from one of the greats in the business, Seth McWhorter. That podcast episode is live now, and it's the first in a new series that we're doing. So really excited about the Building Links podcast series. So go and check that out and get your Fishbird Links hats available now in the Pro Shop.
They look great.
Mm-hmm.
So good.
Yeah, it's been fun to see all those going through the shop, and we should remind that we also have our spring sale going in there. So check out the sale tab if you're shopping hats while you're in there, proshop.links.golf. But in addition, we have a lot going on this week, guys. We got multiple podcasts. We got stuff going on in the Pro Shop. We also, as of now, our second wave of signature events is live for all Links members. So some awesome venues in there. Tree Farm, Arbor Links, Lake Merced out in SF. So those are open now. Spots are limited. Saw a bunch going right off the bat here today. So if you are interested, make sure to grab a spot soon. Those are going to be some absolutely amazing experiences at some courses we don't see every year, like Quail Hollow.
Let's get into Quail Hollow. I'm excited. All right. So obviously starting Thursday, we got the PGA Championship at Quail Hollow Club in Charlotte, North Carolina. Quail Hollow's hosted, we've seen this a ton. It's hosted the now Truist, previously Wells Fargo, since 2003. It also hosted the PGA Championship in 2017, which is Justin Thomas's breakthrough, his first major. It also hosted the 2022 President's Cup. It is a hosting venue. They host a ton of golf there. We've seen it on TV. We'll get into the fatigue about that. It was designed by George Cobb, who notably redesigned East Lake. He had a hand in that. He also did the 9-hole at Augusta, so he was friends with the group over there, and they brought him in to do the 9-hole. So that was kind of just a sweet connection point to the previous major we just had. He also was a design consultant for a number of years, but then more recently, Quail Hollow had a bunch of work done by Palmer, and then Tom Fazio has really been kind of the guiding hand, and we can argue for good or bad, but Tom Fazio has been doing most of the work over there for the last couple of decades now. So I guess, first, we're a golf course company, so I guess let's talk about Quail Hollow as a venue. What do we think about it? Do we feel fatigued? Do we like it? Do we not like it? Just what's our takes on Quail Hollow as a venue?
You guys want me to start?
Sure.
Yeah, please do.
I think every time that Fazio has come in and did little tinkering here and there, what's ended up coming out of it is it's only really it hasn't really made it harder. I think it's only really just rewarded the bomber skill set more and more each time. I think one of the biggest, most interesting things to watch this week is how different the PGA Championship group is going to set this up from what we're used to the Wells Fargo. Because what we've known of the Wells Fargo in recent years, it's bombs away. Hitting the fairway doesn't really matter. Wyndham Clark won 2 years ago, hitting 41% of fairways on the week. go take that back to 17, and it was a lot of accuracy guys. It was Kisner, Kuchar, Stroud, Oosthuizen, Molinari, all these guys at the top of the leaderboard. And that 2017 PGA Championship, in terms of penalty for missing the fairway off the tee, was one of the highest in major championship history. So are these guys going to be able to get away with sending at 330 and being unbothered by where it ends up because they're going to have a short iron in? Or is there going to have some teeth to it? The rain, of course, has come in this week, which softens the course, which sucks for them. I kind of feel like the PGA Championship and Quail Hollow have heard everything. Everyone's slandering their golf course. Everyone's slandering their city. They're going to try their best to fight back. Whether that happens or not, I think remains to be seen.
You're like a
One
greenskeeper's
question.
revenge situation. Go ahead. Chris. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I was actually going to kind of ask something along those veins. Is like, I'm curious from your perspective, Joe, like how much of it does come down to setup versus just the architecture of the course. Like, I don't know if you've seen anything in the data or if you really can tell, but like how much of that really can they affect by just how they choose to, set up the fairway line, set up the rough, and pin placements, all that.
Yeah, I think most of it's going to come down to how firm are they able to get the greens. Now, I know they have sub-air. It's still taking on a lot of rain. You see, even like looking back to Philly last week, Philly kind of ran through the ringer a little bit after day one, and Denny McCarthy goes 8 under, and Keith Mitchell goes 9 under. And they realized we can fight back a little bit by utilizing provocative pin locations, by utilizing some risk reward, by increasing the penalty for a miss in terms of missing those small greens. Quail can try to do that as much as they can. I think the PGA Championship has been one of the more consistent majors that we've seen in the Rota. I think since they're kind of in a tough spot scheduling-wise to go to places and make them really hard in the beginning of May because of the overseed, but they've done a good job. They've created compelling leaderboards. They found this sweet spot of a winning score between like 8 and 14 under par, which I think makes for the best golf tournaments. They're going to try. I'm going to continue to monitor, some of the boots on the ground that I talk to and the weather the rest of the week to see if they'll be able to accomplish some of those goals.
Sweet. Cooper, too much Quail Hollow. Like, how do you feel this as a viewer? Like, how are you thinking about this? Are you excited?
I'm stoked. They could play golf pretty much anywhere, and I'm excited to see these guys compete. So, to that end, I don't necessarily get the slander. I'm a big maxi for the old architecture, and I want to see more of that coming up. I'm stoked on Oakmont. I'm stoked on Bethpage. So I'm not necessarily like no more Quail Hollow ever. I'm not that guy. I'm excited to see these guys compete on pretty much any stage. But I'm also in favor of a lot more of that rotation.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right and gracious take. I mean, one of my favorite memes in general is like has like the 4 dragons. I don't remember if it's from a Disney movie or something, and you have like the 3 strong dragon, and it has like Augusta National, Oakmont, Portrush, and then and then Quail Hollow is the 4th one. But yeah, I mean, it's exciting, and I think like obviously it's good content for people to crap on things, but let's just get excited. Let's just be grateful the fact we get to see the best golfers on earth playing together. Because right now, with all the pre-merger stuff, they only get to do it 4 times a year. So, Joe, I guess maybe one curiosity I have for you as someone who thinks about this a lot and does this for a living. Do you approach majors any differently? Like, is there any either objective or subjective things that, like, as you think about these tournaments, obviously like they're more exciting and there's more people watching them, but like from an actual tournament standpoint, do you think about it differently than you would a signature or an off-field event?
In terms of handicapping it, yes, I squeeze the leaderboard a little bit, or the odds board. I bring it in. There are certain guys that you could look to maybe break through who haven't proven it on a big stage, that you can feel confident picking to win the Byron Nelson or the Cognizant Classic. I don't have nearly as much confidence if someone hasn't done it yet to come through and all of a sudden do that in a major championship. So there are immediately some guys further down the board that I kind of cross off that I may otherwise consider. And it's just, it typically is able to does a better job of separating the best players in the world. And why is that? Primarily, it's long iron play for me, at least from my perspective. You're going to hit more 200-plus yard approach shots. And Scottie Scheffler, over the course of 72 holes, is going to outperform those guys more likely on average on 200-yard-plus shots than he is on 100-yard shots. So the more long irons you can get, the more penal a fairway miss, the firmer the greens, the tougher the conditions, the more that eyes are drawn to the top of the leaderboard. I still like to have fun with betting. I still love a good long shot. I love a good guy to get in the mix and for rooting interest. But I think in terms of how you approach it, if your goal is to solely walk out of the end of Sunday afternoon with more money in your pocket than you came into this week with, you should probably stick more to the top of the board.
Fair enough. Fair enough. And so what you kind of touched on this, but specifically for Quail Hollow, specifically for this week, what are some of the like major stats you're looking at? Like what are the things that you think someone has to do really well, whether it be course fit, you mentioned long iron play, like what are some of those high level stats that people should be, if they're digging in this on their own, what should they be thinking about?
Yep. I built a model, 200-plus yard proximity. I looked at strokes gained off the tee and strokes gained approach, which I always do, but I filter that in on long, difficult golf courses. You can look at how players have performed historically at major championships. The greens are kind of interesting this week. I don't think there's it's the POA overseed Trivialis, from my understanding. I like to look at strokes gained putting more on just a baseline level, like last 36, last 50 holes, versus some of the green separating stuff. I think gets a little hairy to me. I just want to know who's putting best right now. Look, if you go back far enough, Patrick Cantlay is going to look like one of the best putters in the world, and Justin Thomas is going to look like one of the worst guys to ever hold a putter in his hand. You look recently, though, it's so much about confidence. You guys know this. Thomas is putting great. Cantlay can't hit a 7-footer to save his life right now. That can, of course, flip. But I think for putting more so, it's based on recency for me. And the interesting, you touched on it, the interesting wrinkle to this major is, yes, you can factor in course history. The big difference between the two guys at the top of the board is one has been dominant and plays Quail Hollow every year with a ton of experience, and the other's never been here, except for the President's Cup when he was terrible, quite frankly. But yeah, it's kind of a different wrinkle this week where we're going to show up to Oakmont and nobody's seen it in a long time. Everyone's starting from square one. This week, you can really, I think, lean on some of that course history, particularly in recent Wells Fargos.
Sweet. Yeah. And that, I think is another advantage. We talked about like the fatigue with Quail Hollow, but it does make it interesting. This is the only sport that you get to really have a repeat understanding of how someone has performed over the last couple of years at a venue. It doesn't matter in the NFL. Like obviously home field advantage matters, but like every course is completely different. And we have seen these people play these courses, which does add a wrinkle to your point. So I guess, as we kind of get into the meat and potatoes here, let's try to talk ourselves into some guys. I know you put out a really, really helpful sort of top 10 to watch. Who are some players that like we should be, and kind of the way I see this is, obviously you're a professional, Cooper, Chris, and we're golf sickos, but like, we're just trying to squeeze out as much knowledge as we can. So as you're going into this, who are the 10 names that we should be talking ourselves into right now, do you think?
Well, I think you start with the big three, right? And it's Scottie, Rory, and it's Bryson. And it's interesting, the fluidity in this odds market over the past couple of days, because, a week ago I recorded with Pat Mayo, and the two, Scottie and Rory, were 5-1, and Bryson was 3 times the price. He was 14-1. He's closed that gap, and he's closing it rapidly. And I think that's accurate. I think he's within that group. They may be tier 1A. He's right behind them. It's the situation of objects in the mirror closer than they appear. Bryson's right with them and deserves to be with those two guys. He's shown it in major championships. It's a near perfect course fit for his towering high draw. I expect him to be there. Right after that is where you start to get this mix of, I think you can make arguments for a lot of players. For me, the 4th best player in the field is Justin Thomas right now, based on current form, based on some of the course stuff, based on the course history aspect that he can throw in there. But right after that, you've got Rahm, Schauffele, Morikawa, Oberg. These names can all do it. They all deserve to be there talent-wise, but are all kind of going through their own, like, spot of trouble right now with one area or the other. So those are kind of like the big 8. And then after that, you start to get to some guys like Neiman, Matsuyama, Kepka you can throw in there. But it's an interesting board dynamic where you have 3 guys who seem to be the clear favorites, and the rest of guys jump into that 20-1 and plus range.
Is that pretty
Yeah,
normal? Go ahead, Chris.
I was gonna ask how much do you think that is kind of accurate or justified? Like I thought that kind of the same thing as like, and even wasn't even considering Scottie that much, just thinking like Rory and Bryson seem like such a good fit. Almost feels like I shouldn't even consider anyone else. But like, do you think that's justified, or obviously it's just kind of to a degree? But what
I
are
think
your
it's
thoughts on how
justified.
you should treat that?
I still think, in my opinion, Scottie's the best player in the world. I think we go to Oakmont next month, and they're going to all be great fits there. I prefer Scottie Scheffler. His long iron play is unbelievable. His decision making, I absolutely trust, and the big underrated factor there is his partnership with Ted Scott. They just miss in the correct spots and make the right decision, like 100% of the time, no matter the circumstance. The other 2 guys, you can question their decision making here and there, whether they've rise to the occasion in big moments. But I think the big differentiator this week between Scottie and Rory is clearly the course history. Rory's got 4 wins here. Just did it last year. He's been open about being a perfect course for his game, whether he likes the modern technology and golf course design or not. He understands that this is a place he shows up to, and he's starting on second base for the week. He's got a clear-cut advantage. I think he deserves to be the favorite to win this week based on that alone. But yeah, I think it's common, Chris, I guess, to kind of answer your question, that you do get sort of a big 3. What's interesting is the gap between Bryson and Rahm in Thomas. They've got a pretty large window there where I feel like those players can mix a little bit in and have what it takes to get it done if they get themselves there.
Totally. One storyline that I think was funny, just kind of, and I don't know how much, Joe, you do. Like I'm a analytics guy normally, like very much, especially for baseball. It's just the numbers themselves sort of tell the story, and sometimes there's outliers. But I do think it's fun to like dig a little bit more deeply into like what's going on in these players' brains right now. One of my favorite tweets, Claire Rogers, who's great on Twitter, put out a tweet saying that Scottie's wearing his player credentials all week just to avoid getting arrested. Which just is a great bit. But like ultimately, how much does that stuff matter? Like, these are professional athletes. These guys have psychology teams that are like constantly making sure that they're in the right frame of mind. But does stuff like that like worry you at all about Scottie? That like this is a year ago, he was in Valhalla getting arrested, and there was a huge story. Like, does it matter?
I believe
or
that was a
not
year
matter?
ago.
Crazy.
Like it was a
Yeah.
decade ago.
Doesn't make any sense.
Crazy.
I don't put any stock into it now.
Mm.
The big storyline headed into that week, if you remember, was Rory and filing for divorce, and then that kind of got overshadowed by the whole Scottie Scheffler in an orange jumpsuit situation. I don't think those particular incidents matter today, this week, but I think what you're hitting on is something a lot of people often forget, and it's hard to quantify when handicapping or looking at winners. Like, how does the guy feel right now? Like, what's his home life like? Is he in a good spot mentally? Is he going through something with his marriage? Is he struggling with something with his parents? Is he going through something mentally that doesn't have him operating at his sharpest? And you guys know as well as I do, when I go out to the course and play, when my mind is free, when I'm in a good mood, when I'm excited and happy to be there and feel like my game is in a decent place, I play much better.
For sure.
So it's one of the real important aspects of golf that I think is really hard. Sometimes myself and others get so bogged down in the stat models that we forget that this is an individual sport and we're talking about human beings. And like even back to the course history stuff, when I've talked to players, they say it matters. There's certain places on tour that they love to go to and they feel like they step on the first tee and are very much in a comfort zone. And there's other places they hate. Just like any of us, there are certain courses that suit our eyes. There are certain mental conditions that we operate and function our best at on the golf course. And that's the kind of stuff that's hard to hard to really put into a stat model.
For sure.
Historically, you may look at Scottie and think he's more resilient to this stuff than most people. After the arrest, he came out and went pretty low. The 2024 Masters, his wife was like almost gonna give birth, and that was hanging over his head. He's like, "Yeah, I'll withdraw if that happens, right?" And then he won that tournament. So I think mindset definitely matters, but perhaps less so for Scottie and the externals. He seems to be able to really show up and lock in.
Yeah, I agree with you there too. And one of the things, I know it's not for everyone, but I'm a big person of faith as well, and I think that helps Scottie Scheffler. I really believe this. It may not be true, but I think it helps him so much because he's talked about sort of relinquishing himself from the result and it just not being the most important thing in his life. Where you look at Rory McIlroy, especially down the Sunday of Masters, golf's the most important part of his life. His legacy and going for the Grand Slam and how people think about him. Rory cares. He hears it all. I talked to him many times in the TGL pressers, and he hears it. I brought up the thing to him one time about Charlie Hoffman made like a comment, and it bothered Rory. Like that kind of stuff doesn't affect Scottie Scheffler. He doesn't hear it. I believe it kind of has something to do with his faith, and he's able to kind of tone out that outside noise. And not that golf is not important to him. Clearly it is. I don't want to, make that case, but there's other things that I think allow him in his life to really put things better into perspective that allow him to kind of operate at a high level when pressure is at the highest.
Yeah, I mean, there's this thing with, bulletin board material, right? Like famously, I'm sure we all watched The Last Dance, and you just see how much Jordan was driven by the negativity and the haters, and like he would almost have to manufacture reasons why people didn't believe in him so that he could perform at his highest. So there's like that end. Then you have the Scottie, I'm blocking it out. Rory's kind of caught in the middle. You know what I mean? Like he sees the bulletin board material, but then he, instead of harnessing it, I mean, granted, he's career Grand Slam, one of the best golfers of all time, but that does give me pause sometimes. Like big storylines this week. Number one, he is in the driver's seat, quote unquote, for a actual Grand Slam this year. Like that has to be a lot of pressure because if he loses, that's over, and it probably won't ever happen again. And then also, like, I know Spieth probably doesn't have, he puts a bunch of pressure on himself, but he has a chance to win the career Grand Slam by winning this tournament, right? Yep. So that pressure has to like affect people, and it affects people in different ways for sure.
I'd like to think, or I kind of, in my mental model, I feel like it'll be a positive for Rory this week because, so imagine he didn't win the Masters, then he would be coming into this week as the, whatever week it was without winning a major, 60 times or whatever. And this was the course that like he's designed to win at, right? So it's like, then he'd be thinking, oh, if I don't win this week, I'm never going to win a major again. But since he won the Masters, now I don't know if this would be his mindset, but it kind of feels like he's playing with house money, right? It's like he got the monkey off his back. Now he can go in like completely freed up and, at a place where, like you said, Joe, he's starting on second base. He's got like an advantage over everybody. He's got the course history. He can go in. Like I would imagine that frees him up a little bit, makes him a little more relaxed. He doesn't have, just that thing on his shoulder hanging over him saying, oh man, if I don't win this week, then, now it's all gravy from here. It feels like.
Yeah. I mean, you could see it at the Masters. I mean, that man was wearing it.
It was such a dicey.
Yeah. The tension was like, you could feel it through the television. Like I could feel it myself watching it. And it's interesting, like the dichotomy between Rory, who's like complete tunnel vision. Like there could not have been another person out in Augusta National. He's clearly battling his own head. Right. And Bryson like kind of uses that stuff as fuel. He uses the fans, like especially think about Pinehurst last year and how he's able to kind of take everything in and look around him and interact with the fans and kind of use that to make him better and elevate his game versus Rory is like the total opposite to me and is total like brim down, tunnel vision, focus, and I think each can be better in their own ways, but to your point, Chris, has to be freeing for him. I mean, just to get that monkey
gigantic gorilla off of his shoulders and finally do that there. He's one of the more negatively impacted guys by scar tissue. When he goes back to a place like Augusta, when he goes back to Ireland to play in an Open Championship and he hits the first tee shot out of bounds, it bothers him in a way it doesn't other players. So I think coming to a place where he has exceptional positive vibes can only sort of further heighten his advantage.
Great. Cool. Well then, so let's make some bets. All right. So the way that I think about this, Joe, is we're gonna, I don't know exactly how it's gonna work. Maybe we put it into FanDuel. Maybe we bet some links coins with each other. But for this exercise, we're gonna each select a win only, and then you're gonna go last, and you can critique our choices right on any axis. Like again, I'll speak for myself. I'm still somewhat of a noob, right, when it comes to I understand golf. I understand who's good. But a lot of the odd stuff, like maximizing value and getting a good value, like that stuff is still pretty new to me. So as a segue, like y'all have talked me into Rory. I'm going with Rory. He's currently plus 450 on FanDuel at least. So that's my win only pick. Chris, Cooper, who you got to win? And then Joe, tell us how you think we did.
Okay.
Chris, you start.
So if we're going off of odds, I think I will pick Bryson just because just looking at the odds and how they played out, it seems like there's a little bit of kind of the public team factor of like, all of the, the retail bettors or the, just kind of your layman golf fans. They know Scottie's the best. They know Rory, right? Just from all the history and obviously won the Masters and everything. So like those are I think the most popular bets. And at least judging by the odds, it seems like Bryson's still maybe a little running under the radar, whereas I would put him kind of up in that same echelon of chances to win. So I feel like it's a good price there, which is kind of interesting because, you'd think of Bryson as more of like a public person, right, with the YouTube golf and everything else. But that'd be my pick.
Cool. Coop, what do you got?
I'm going to go Spieth for my outright, just for entertainment value. That's the whole reason I'm placing a better.
Just going on vibes.
I love it.
Just to really feel it when he hits the ball in the woods and has to make one of those recovery shots.
Yep. All right, Joe. What's your pick? I mean, you don't have to make these picks publicly in case these are like behind a paywall for you or something.
No.
What's your pick, and then who do you, if it's one of ours or like kind of our mental model of thinking through this, what feedback do you have?
Yeah, so my pick is Justin Thomas. He's 22-1. I think that he's ready. I think that he's close to those guys, at least not warranted to be 4 or 5 times the betting price. Third in strokes gained total on the PGA Tour this year. Number 1 in birdie or better percentage. He's doing all the things like coming in January. I was really high on Justin Thomas coming into this year. If I could have said, I'll give you 22-1 at Quail Hollow, and he's got to check the following boxes, he's checked them all. He's finally gotten the win back. First, second, third in his last 4 starts. He's clearly in fantastic form. Exceptional wedge player. Has the ability to make shots. I trust his guts and ability on Sunday when it comes into contention. Putting it great as well right now, around the green, top 20 in the world. He's doing everything well, and he's going back to Quail Hollow where he won a PGA championship. So he's obviously got some good momentum there, looking for number 3 in terms of a Wanamaker trophy in his career. He's my pick to win, and I guess of your guys 3, I would probably say Bryson is the one that I'm most inclined to go to. I just like the additional bump off of Rory McIlroy, catching an extra 3 or 4 points there. I think that he's going to mix. I think that he's going to contend. He's just so built and manufactured for major championship golf. And you put him on a course like Quail Hollow where he can eliminate the hazards and traps at 300 yards and go right over top of them. He's at a big advantage. I can't say that I'm as high on Jordan Spieth this week, Coop. It would be a great story. CBS or NBC or who's ever got the coverage would love nothing more than a Spieth final pairing, and we get back-to-back Grand Slams. But it's just been too long, and there's too many lingering concerns, and we know double bogey is lurking around every corner at Quail Hollow for Jordan.
Yeah. What are the odds on, what's the over/under on number of doubles that Spieth has? I'll absolutely take that bet. He's my favorite golfer. All right, so let's do a top five. And again, like what I'm fascinated hearing, like, I know Chris, we've talked about this in the past. You're really kind of looking at the odds and making your picks based on value. And that's something that I'm really trying to learn. And so I went the opposite. I picked Scottie for top five. He's minus 120 right now. In my head, I'm thinking through like, just, am I going to be right or not? Like you mentioned earlier, Joe, like, do I want to leave this weekend with more money than I started with? And like, I think it's like, even though the return might not be there, I'm liking Scottie as a top five. Chris, what do you got for top five?
Yeah, not to just mention the same names over and over again, but like Rory, to me, it feels like this just seems like a place where it's hard to imagine him not getting a top five. And the odds aren't great, but it's as much of a guarantee as you can imagine for a place. So that feels like the sure thing.
Okay.
Yeah. Same here, Rory. Top five.
Okay. All right, Joe. What about you?
Yeah, those two guys, I gotta lean Rory there, assuming that the odds are pretty similar. I just think that this is I think Scottie's a better player still right now. I just think that the course history and profile and stuff that it rewards is falling right into the lap of Rory McIlroy. And he's playing awesome, right? We forget that he won the Players. Like, that's how good he's been this year. That would be like a monumental, historic win for a lot of people. And because he won the Masters, it kind of overshadows the fact that he also won the second biggest tournament of the season, also won Pebble Beach, which is a signature event. Playing great, doing so and like mixing in events, like last week at Philly Cricket with like his B- game, he finished seventh. So
Yeah.
if you want a top five with upside, I think it's Rory.
Great. Yeah.
Joe, I'm curious of how you think about this. And I know you said you didn't kind of go really deep on the top 10, top 20 markets for the PGA, but how do you think about that typically kind of betting when only versus top 5, top 10, top 20? Like, is there a different way to think about it? Or do you typically see more value in like, I don't know, certain type of player going down the leaderboard a little bit or anything like that?
Yep, I typically, to be honest with you guys, will stick to an outright only card. I understand that I'm trying to find a balance of players. I try to hit around a 7 or 8 to 1 mark in terms of a return on if I were to be able to hit a winner. That makes me have to hit about 6 a season to be profitable, and has kind of been the method that I've used for the last number of years and been able to hit that. I don't do a whole lot of the top 10. One, because the markets here in Florida, you have to pay attention to dead heat rules at your book. So what I mean by that is if a guy ties for top 10 and he finishes in T8, but there's 5 other players that are T8, some books will pay out your top 10 in full. Some will chop those odds in half. And if you look simply at like an outright market on a price, you aren't getting the same value if you just break down the odds and divide it by 10 that you would expect in an outright space. It makes it harder to hit. I think top 10s, it just depends on how you like to bet. They're more sustainable. It can help carry you on weeks when you don't hit a winner, and it sucks. Trust me, it sucks. When you have a big outright ticket and the guy finishes second, I've done it a number of times. I've been through those lulls. I've been through those ruts where you feel like you hit 7 second places in a season. But you just got to kind of break through it and manage your bankroll and understand and kind of play the long game. So that's kind of why I usually stick to outrights and matchups are the two.
Fair. Cool. Well, then I had top 20, top 10, and top 20. Let's just pick one of those. So I'm going to do one that's like deviates completely from all the thoroughbreds that I've picked. I have Daniel Berger at plus 210 for a top 20. So that's just kind of my sticking my neck out there a little bit. Chris Cooper, do you have any interesting either top 10 or top 20 values?
I like Rosie.
Okay.
Coming off the Masters second place, I think he's still looking pretty good. Underperformed a bit in Philly, but I think he comes back here.
Okay, and that's the top 20, you think? Okay. Chris, what are you looking at?
Yeah, I think if we were dipping like further down the field, I think I might go with Nicholas Norgard. So a little random one, but like just trying to go. I think I'd go with either him or Minwoo on like just trying to go for extreme bomber, course fit and hope you hit on a good week and don't get the downside of the volatility on some of those players. I actually don't have the odds in front of me, but I don't. They're going to be better than some of those top names. That's for sure.
Sure. Yeah. How do you think maybe Joe, like downfield, like if you're doing even a win only, I assume you're placing multiple win only bets, or are you just picking one horse, or are you looking, let's do a
Yeah,
long shot, let's do one to kind of hedge my bet there? Like, how do you think about that?
my method is more so I like to pick a conglomerate of players. So I don't usually go to the top. Now I caveat that I had Scottie at the CJ Cup a few weeks ago, kind of single bullet, all in on one player. For me, I like to have more of a mix of guys. So with starting at Justin Thomas, I can grab 2 or 3 guys or tag team a group there in that like 20 to 30 to 1 range and try to slay a dragon. That's usually how I go about it. But with the top 20s, I'm more inclined in majors to like take a chance on a guy. I really like the Daniel Berger shout. I actually bet him outright as well this week, is
Sweet.
like 90 to 1. 9 straight top 30s for Berger. He's in it every week.
Mhm.
So reliable off the tee, does not miss many fairways, hits it plenty long. Top 5 in the field in long iron proximity as well, and a putter. Right, I think he really wants to make this Ryder Cup team. So big week for someone like Daniel Berger, who's been super consistent right now and just hasn't broke through. But a third at the Heritage a few weeks ago. I like where your head's at, Chris, on the Norgard. Should just find a guy who's going to send it way down the board. The one for me is Dean Burmeister. I had Dean last year at Valhalla top 20, and I think everyone loved him, and he finished 12th. I think he has what it takes to get it done, particularly on these type setups. He's a bomber. He a lot of people, you get a little value, I feel like, when you go to the live guys, and you kind of touched on it with Bryson earlier, but lesser known commodities, no one's really watching anymore, right? But they say people are watching, but
Hey, what
nobody's
about the
really
app?
paying
Come on,
attention.
what about the app? Yeah.
What about the app? Yeah, they get us millions of app views, we all know, but I don't think a lot of people are tuning in for Dean Burmeister, but still playing pretty well over there. Mixed in Miami a few weeks ago when I did catch a little bit of action, and I just think he's a good profile fit in terms of his skill set. I got him, I think, plus 450 in a top 20 market for Burmeister. So when I go down the board in majors, I like to kind of, if I see a guy that I like and think is a good fit, I more try to stick to like a top 20 bet.
Sweet. Let's do 2 last ones here. I think so. I'll say the first one, and then Joe, I think for you to think about, is there sort of like a off kilter wild card bet that you like that's just interesting? Actually don't see a lot of that in FanDuel. Like there's the hole in one stuff. Will there be? But maybe we do some really wild bet. But before that, so the 4 of us, we have Rory, Bryson, Spieth, Thomas to win. Who's the winner? That's not those 4 guys. I have Morikawa at plus 1600. Which is a little bit counterintuitive for everything we've talked about with course fit, but back to the iron play. He's always around, he obviously hasn't won a major in a while, but I like his approach play. And I'm so top heavy on bombers that I just psychologically wanted to pick someone who had a little bit different of a game. Chris, who do you got that's not Rory, Bryson, Spieth, and Justin Thomas?
Yeah, if we're pulling those guys out, I'd go with Ludwig. It seems like he's always like a consensus going into the Masters. He's like, everybody's like, he's going to finish top 3, blah, 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 and then he goes a little under the radar. I mean, kind of some injury stuff and everything. And we don't have the course history. So I feel like he doesn't get a little bit of the play of some of these other guys. But I could definitely see on Sunday, he wins and we're like, why wasn't everyone talking about Ludwig? He's one of the best players in the world. So I'd like getting that pick. A winner without pick.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm just going off of days or weeks since last win. And Fleetwood's infinity, right? So I'm picking Tommy Fleetwood. Yes.
He's due.
Fleetwood. Yeah, he's due, right? It's a law of averages. That's what I'm leaning on.
Awesome. All right, Joe. What about you? Not Rory, not Bryson, not Spieth, not Justin Thomas.
Scottie's not off the list as well.
Scottie, I guess technically. Well, no, you can't be Scottie or Rory. Yeah, because that's the main bet is no Scottie, no Rory, no Bryson,
I'd
and
say
we're adding.
Xander. I would say Xander for the guy for me. He's not back yet, but he's dropping us breadcrumbs that it's coming. not putting well, losing off the tees, but he's been really, really sharp with his irons, particularly his long irons. His tournament at the Valspar like a month and a half ago was the single most strokes gained on approach in 2025 on any tour by any player at any tournament. The best week with his irons. It's close for Xander. You know, he's obviously the defending champion. He's mixed at Quail Hollow before, runner-up the last 2 times they had tournaments here. He lost to Wyndham, kind of got the doors blown off him by Rory last year in the final round, but understands the course, always kind of elevates his game in major championships. He would be the guy if you know, you asked me to eliminate the big 5 that my eyes are going to.
Sweet. Cool. Well, then we'll wrap it up with a wild card bet. But just to recap, I have Rory, Chris has Bryson, Cooper has Spieth, Joe has Justin Thomas. He liked Chris's bet the most. So, Chris, you get a cookie for that one. Top 5, I have Scottie, Chris has Rory, Cooper has Rory, Joe has Rory. So both Chris and Cooper get 2 cookies. We then, I had Daniel Berger as a top 20. Chris was picking through Norgard and Minwoo in a top 20. Cooper had Rose, and then Joe had Dean Burmeister. And then as far as winners without Scottie, I had Morikawa. Chris had Ludwig. Cooper had Fleetwood, and Joe had Xander. So, Joe, let's get weird. What's even it like you have to find a weird market for it. Like, what's an off-kilter bet that you like to make?
This is the one that I like to make in majors. I've kind of been hit or miss, although it came through at Pinehurst. I haven't seen the odds for it yet, but it's usually right around like 3-1. Some books will offer the winner to come from Live. I think this is a good tournament for that. Yeah, obviously I have Bryson at the top, but there are other guys who I think you're getting some name value on. Koepka's floated to like 60-1. Nobody wants to bet John Rahm this week. Nobody wants to touch Joaquin Neiman. Nobody's really talking about Tyrrell Hatton or Cam Smith. I think there are enough names at the top there and guys who are proven major championship winners, particularly like Rahm, Koepka, Bryson. I think 2 or 3 of these guys find their way into the top 5 on Sunday, which inherently at like 3-1 presents you with a little bit of value there. And just kind of like we spoke about, like no one really wants or knows enough about the Live guys to take that bet from a majority standpoint. So it's one that I like to kind of look to in these major weeks.
Great.
Like that.
So then Cooper, Chris, Live or no? Wait, what side of that bet are you taking?
I'll take the Live side. Yeah, I've got Koepka on my short list, so I think that makes sense. Yeah, in terms of value, it could be a good play.
Let's do it. Let's root for it.
Okay.
I'm all in. Cool. Well, Joe, anything else you want to touch on? You think we missed? I know we want to get you out of here in a couple of minutes, but anything else you feel like the people got to know before they lock these bets in?
I think we pretty much touched on it all. I'll have my full outright card out tomorrow. I usually post it right around noon at TourPicks over there on X. Articles are up now that you mentioned on RotoBaller. The Preferred Lines podcast, which is the show that I do every week, is up now with PGA Tout. We went through for like an hour and a half and talked about a ton of players and storylines. I think you guys did a great job. We pretty much touched on all different parts of the odds board. Looking forward to this week, as I do for every major. We'll keep the energy up. We'll keep rocking until Thursday morning, and we get 156. I just hope we get it all in and don't have to deal with weather delays and that crap this weekend, and Quail is able to fight back and be a proper test for these guys is what I'm rooting for.
Yeah, let's root for the content. Let's root for the entertainment for sure.
Root for the course, baby.
Yeah. Let's be excited. We're betting on a Live player to win. We just want to see a good time. Great. So yeah, let's get out of here. And I really appreciate Joe for taking the time. I know these weeks are crazy for you and really, and just really appreciate you taking the time to come on with us and share your thoughts on the PGA Championship. Cooper, Chris, as always, thanks for taking some time too. Really excited to see kind of what shakes out here and which one of us is going to get some bragging rights, at least internally. And to all the listeners and viewers, really want your feedback. Thanks for listening, sharing the comments, sharing Discord. Make sure you subscribe so you get notified of new stuff. We did, as Cooper mentioned, we released a new series, first episode of a new series today. We have more stuff of that coming out as we sort of unpack the greatness at golf clubs. And we obviously will have a lot of content around Spay and Hillcrest coming up as well. Yeah, don't forget also, if you don't already follow Joe, go over to Twitter right now, go to TourPicks, hit that follow so that you can see his stuff that'll be coming out this week. And we will, with the live show stuff continues. So we will see you next week as well. So look out for when we're announcing when that time drops. Cool.
Thanks,
Appreciate it, everybody. Yeah.
Cheers. Good luck, guys.
Championship
Yep.
week.
See you.